Berlin, 1943. War had cast long shadows over the city, but nothing compared to the darkness lurking inside a secluded laboratory on the outskirts. The streets outside were scarred by bombs and fear, yet within the walls of this hidden facility, a far more sinister terror brewed. A scientist, known for brilliance and cruelty in equal measure, had embarked on a project so macabre it would haunt history. Behind locked doors and iron bars, human screams became his obsession, his twisted experiments aimed at capturing the essence of fear itself. The hum of machines and the faint flicker of gas lamps created a grim symphony, amplifying the terror of those unfortunate enough to enter. No one spoke openly about his work, yet rumors spread like wildfire. Victims who vanished without trace, tortured beyond imagination, their cries allegedly bottled, stored, and studied as if fear could be quantified. Shadows in the corners moved unnaturally, reacting to the terror that filled the room, a haunted energy seeping into the walls. The air was thick, pungent with chemicals and the lingering echo of agony, a blend of science and the macabre. Outside, Berlin's blackened sky mirrored the grim reality inside, reflecting the moral decay hidden behind scientific ambition. The scientist's gaze was cold, calculating, his mind divorced from empathy, focused entirely on the mechanics of human suffering. Candles and dim electric lights cast grotesque reflections on glass and metal, bottles lined up in precise rows, each rumored to contain the essence of a scream, a moment of human horror trapped for eternity. Guards, conditioned to obedience, moved silently, their faces pale, their eyes betraying fleeting glimpses of dread they could not name. Every corner of the laboratory seemed alive with the memory of past experiments, instruments stained with remnants of tragedy, the walls saturated with energy that whispered of torture, fear, and condemned lives. Scholars who later uncovered fragments of records described methods that defied conventional understanding, cruel devices designed to prolong anguish, and the obsessive precision of a man who had lost all humanity. Rumors told of victims lured under false pretenses, each promising moment ending in horror. Their screams captured in a manner so technical and brutal that even seasoned interrogators recoiled. The scientist worked with surgical detachment, a haunted brilliance guiding him, transforming screams into data, agony into analysis, human horror into macabre study. Every sound, every flicker of light, every shiver in the air was meticulously recorded, catalogued and stored in his collection of bottled terror. Those who glimpsed the laboratory described a chilling order, a horrific symmetry between suffering and science, a place where morality had been entirely stripped away. Outside, Berlin groaned under the weight of war, yet the screams within this hidden facility were isolated, artificial, distilled, and perhaps even more brutal than the city's chaos. The scientist's obsession grew with each experiment, each victim a step deeper into madness, each scream a testament to the convergence of human cruelty and scientific ambition. Guards and assistants, though complicit, shivered in silence, knowing that the lab's doors offered no escape from the moral abyss they now inhabited. The bottles, neatly lined, seemed to hum with energy, shadows reflecting the horrors contained within, and the very air felt cursed, as if haunted by the memories of vanished souls. Every instrument told a story of meticulous brutality, a narrative of human suffering captured with obsessive precision, a macabre blend of science and terror. In this dim, haunted laboratory, Berlin's darkness was not just outside. It had been bottled, measured, and preserved, a chilling testament to the depths of human malice. The screams themselves became characters, the invisible victims haunting each corridor, each flicker of light, each shadowed corner. Outside, bombs fell and sirens wailed, but within these walls, time had a different rhythm, dictated by fear, horror, and the relentless pursuit of cursed knowledge. Even the air seemed to thrum with tension, charged with the residual energy of pain, as if the laboratory itself remembered every scream, every act of torture, every moment of tragic inevitability. The scientist moved among his bottles, precise, methodical, his face betraying no emotion. Yet the horror he cultivated filled the room like a living entity. No one dared speak, and those who did not comply vanished quickly, their screams becoming part of the collection, their lives reduced to data points in a brutal, haunted experiment. Shadows stretched unnaturally, responding to the ambient fear, and the very walls seemed alive with the trapped essence of terror, a cursed symphony of anguish. The outside world, burning and fearful, had no notion of this hidden chamber of horror, where the macabre met science, where human screams became the ultimate object of study. Every corner, every flicker of light, every bottle on the shelf whispered of vanished innocence, brutal experimentation, and the haunted legacy of one man's obsessive cruelty. The laboratory was alive, not with life, but with memory, the memory of fear, the energy of human suffering, and the tragic inevitability of what humans can endure under the guise of science. The city outside carried on, unaware of the horrors hidden in the shadows of a Berlin laboratory. Inside, screams echoed faintly, trapped yet palpable, seeping into the corners of every room, a haunted energy lingering long after the moment of torture had passed. The scientists moved with meticulous precision, cataloging, measuring, and observing, each step deliberate, each glance cold and calculating. Instruments gleamed under flickering light, their surfaces reflecting shadows of those who had vanished, whose agony now existed only as sound and memory. The bottles, lined in perfect order, captured the essence of terror, as if human screams could be distilled into tangible, macabre objects. Guards and assistants, haunted by what they witnessed, obeyed silently, the weight of complicity heavy on their shoulders. The air smelled faintly of chemicals, fear, and despair, blending into a suffocating, cursed atmosphere that pressed on the mind and body alike. Every corner held evidence of meticulous brutality, a macabre choreography of human suffering, where morality had been entirely stripped away. Records and notes written in precise, cold handwriting detailed measurements, reactions, and analysis, transforming horror into scientific observation. Rumors whispered among the few who knew, vanished assistants, inexplicable deaths, and the haunted legacy of the scientists' obsession, stories that Berlin's foggy streets concealed from public knowledge. The laboratory itself seemed alive, resonating with residual fear, shadows bending unnaturally, as if acknowledging the macabre events it had contained. Outside, the war raged on, bombs falling and sirens wailing, yet inside a different horror unfolded, one not caused by the chaos of battle, but by the deliberate cruelty of a single, brilliant mind. The scientist's obsession consumed him, each scream fueling further experimentation, each act of torture a step deeper into moral and psychological darkness. Visitors who glimpsed the facility described an unsettling order, the symmetry of suffering and precision, a haunted blend of science and brutality. Every bottle told a story. A scream captured, a life vanished, a tragedy meticulously preserved. Shadows of the past seemed to reach across walls and floors, merging with the present, creating an atmosphere where fear was both tangible and pervasive. The faint flicker of lights created grotesque reflections, ghostly silhouettes dancing in a rhythm dictated by terror. The victims, though physically gone, continued to haunt every inch of the laboratory, their essence trapped within glass, steel, and residual energy, a constant reminder of human cruelty and cursed ambition. Even the instruments, tools of science, seemed imbued with the memory of past horrors, each cut, each device, each measurement echoing the brutality executed with obsessive precision. The laboratory's haunted ambiance intensified at night, when shadows lengthened and the faint hum of machinery amplified the sense of dread, creating a macabre symphony of fear and human suffering. The scientist's presence dominated the space, his cold detachment a stark contrast to the palpable energy of anguish surrounding him. Assistants whispered cautiously, eyes darting, hearts racing, knowing that even a minor misstep could result in disappearance, their screams destined to join the collection. Outside, Berlin's fog thickened, masking the true extent of human horror hidden within the laboratory, as if the city itself conspired to hide the cursed acts from the world. The macabre rhythm of experimentation continued, a dark ballet of fear, science, and obsession, meticulously documented, haunting, and tragically precise. Even years later, those who studied the laboratory described the residual energy, shadows that seemed alive, and the lingering echo of screams, a testament to the brutal genius of a man consumed by cursed ambition. The haunted cold walls bore witness, retaining memories of agony, terror, and vanished lives, ensuring that no detail of the brutal experiments would be forgotten. Every step, every glance, every flicker of light amplified the tragic inevitability of what unfolded, a reminder that obsession, when untethered from morality, leads only to suffering. Shadows danced across floors and shelves, bottles humming faintly, holding within them the essence of fear, human anguish, and macabre genius. The outside world, engulfed in war, remained unaware that within a single laboratory, the screams of countless victims were meticulously captured, preserved, and studied. The scientist moved among his instruments and bottles, detached, precise, haunted by nothing but his pursuit of the ultimate understanding of terror. The laboratory, alive with residual screams, trapped essence and haunted energy, became both a monument to human cruelty and a cursed reminder of the macabre length science can reach when morality is abandoned. Berlin, 1943. The city was fractured by war, its streets scarred by rubble and fear, yet the real darkness thrived in hidden corners. Countless civilians whispered of disappearances, vanished individuals who never returned from the night. Among these shadows, one man stood apart, a scientist whose brilliance was rivaled only by his cruelty. Born into a society valuing precision, he had merged intellect with obsession, transforming fear into his domain. His laboratory, concealed behind unassuming doors, was a world apart, where light flickered ominously across instruments designed to inflict and measure torment. Rumors hinted at the macabre nature of his experiments, tales of human screams being captured, bottled, and analyzed, as if the essence of terror itself could be quantified. Historians later described him as haunted, a man detached from morality, yet irresistibly drawn to understanding the depths of human suffering. The instruments he created were precise, surgical in nature, built not merely to inflict pain, but to extract every nuance of fear, prolonging anguish with obsessive detail. Guards and assistants moved in silence, their eyes betraying fleeting recognition of the brutal events unfolding, knowing that compliance was survival. Even the city's fog seemed to bend around his domain, concealing the laboratory from prying eyes, masking the cursed activity within. Family accounts, though sparse, suggested a man consumed by his vision, a scientist who prioritized data over humanity, obsession over conscience. The laboratory itself was meticulously arranged, shelves lined with bottles, each allegedly containing the essence of a scream, instruments gleaming under flickering lights, shadows twisting along walls echoing the tortured past. The scientist's obsession had roots in earlier experiments, forgotten by history but remembered in whispers among colleagues, tales of brutal methodology, calculated cruelty, and macabre ingenuity. Some assistants vanished without record, their screams rumored to have joined the collection, the ultimate victims in a haunted experiment that blurred lines between science and terror. Berlin's wartime chaos offered convenient cover, allowing his research to progress without scrutiny, hiding macabre acts behind a facade of necessity and duty. The scientist was methodical, precise, and detached, moving among bottles and instruments with a clinical focus, recording data that transformed human agony into a macabre archive. Local folklore absorbed fragments of the story, rumors of vanished individuals, cursed experiments, and a laboratory where human terror was harvested, creating a haunted reputation long before official records documented his work. Citizens who accidentally glimpsed the building's exterior reported a sense of unease, shadows moving unnaturally, and an atmosphere thick with tension, as if the very walls exhaled dread. Scholars later pieced together fragments of documentation, revealing a man obsessed with capturing and analyzing the minutiae of human fear, a genius whose morality had been entirely eclipsed by obsession. Instruments, records, and bottles were aligned meticulously, a testament to precision, obsession, and macabre artistry, reflecting a dark fusion of science and cruelty. Every detail in the laboratory, from chemical vials to mechanical devices, was purposefully arranged to maintain the efficacy of torture and observation, ensuring that every scream could be catalogued with clinical accuracy. The city outside remained unaware, its citizens preoccupied with survival, while within the laboratory, human suffering became measurable, preserved, and studied, a haunting legacy of a brutal mind. Even shadows seemed to react to the haunted energy, twisting unnaturally, as if reflecting the tension, fear, and cursed intent permeating the space. The scientist's past, though partly lost to time, suggested a pattern of escalating obsession, experiments growing more precise and cruel, human screams meticulously documented in his pursuit of ultimate understanding. Each assistant, each guard, each victim played a role in the macabre theater of terror, contributing to a haunted laboratory where morality had no place and cruelty reigned supreme. Every object in the lab told a story: instruments of torture, bottles containing terror, notes meticulously recording reactions, each element reinforcing the macabre symphony orchestrated by the scientist. Berlin's fog, bombs, and shadows could not conceal the haunted legacy being forged, an enduring testament to obsession, brutality, and the dark intersection of science and human suffering. The laboratory was hidden beneath an unassuming building, Its exterior ordinary, yet inside every corner resonated with the weight of human suffering. Berlin's wartime streets buzzed with fear, ration lines, and the distant echo of bombs. But within these walls, a different terror prevailed. Methodical, calculated, and macabre. The scientist moved silently among shelves of bottles, each rumored to contain a scream, a fragment of human agony frozen in time. Guards and assistants followed protocols with silent obedience, their faces pale, haunted by the knowledge that any misstep could mean joining the collection themselves. The instruments were terrifyingly precise, devices that measured the subtle shifts in voice, heartbeat, and breath, capturing the exact moment terror overtook the body. Rumors circulated of assistants who had vanished, of screams so intense they were said to leave an imprint on the walls, lingering long after the moment passed. The scientist's obsession was legendary. Colleagues described a man incapable of empathy, whose mind was entirely consumed with quantifying fear, who treated living beings as mere subjects for macabre research. Shadows stretched across walls, responding to the energy trapped in the room, as if the laboratory itself had absorbed the essence of every scream. Candlelight flickered against glass and metal, creating grotesque reflections of the victims who had passed through, each reflection a haunting reminder of vanished innocence and brutal experimentation. Notes and records lined the tables, meticulously documenting reactions, physiological changes, and auditory patterns. A chilling archive of human suffering, collected with scientific precision. Even the assistants, trained and conditioned, reported feeling an oppressive presence, a cursed aura that seemed to seep from the walls, bottles and instruments alike. The city outside remained unaware, wrapped in war's chaos, yet this hidden chamber of horror continued unabated, a secret testament to obsession and cruelty. Scholars who later uncovered fragments of records described devices that defied conventional understanding, each engineered to prolong agony, maximize terror, and catalog human screams with brutal exactness. Shadows in corners seemed to shift with consciousness, echoing the haunted energy that filled every inch of space. A macabre orchestra orchestrated by the scientist's detached hand. Berlin's fog added another layer of concealment, insulating the laboratory from prying eyes, while within, screams became both data and haunting presence, measured, preserved, and analyzed. Rumors whispered of failed experiments, assistants who disappeared, and the haunted nature of the bottles themselves, each allegedly containing a fragment of human terror, a cursed artifact in a room of methodical horror. The scientist's mind worked in cycles of obsession, reviewing records, observing instruments, and cataloging every nuance of fear, transforming agony into a disciplined, macabre science. The laboratory, though confined, seemed to breathe with the memory of countless screams, haunted by victims whose presence remained palpable despite their vanished forms. The combination of dim lighting, shadows, and chemical fumes created an atmosphere thick with dread, amplifying the sense of moral decay that pervaded every activity. Every wall, every floorboard, every instrument seemed aware of the tragic inevitability unfolding within, a haunted repository for the brutal experiments that defined the scientist's work. The meticulous arrangement of bottles, records, and instruments reflected not only precision, but also obsession, a chilling symmetry between method and macabre intent. Berlin outside, engulfed in war, was oblivious to the laboratory's dark experiments. Yet the energy contained within promised a legacy that would haunt history, a testament to the cursed genius of a man consumed by fear. Assistants dared not speak, their silent compliance fueled by terror, aware that the slightest error could make them subjects, their screams added to the collection of human agony. Shadows moved unnaturally, instruments reflected distorted images, and the haunted energy persisted, a living reminder of the macabre brilliance and brutal obsession that defined the scientist's work. Even long after individual experiments ended, the presence of vanished victims, bottled screams, and cursed instruments maintained a spectral influence, ensuring that the laboratory's dark legacy endured. Every flicker of candlelight revealed grotesque silhouettes, instruments gleaming with remnants of past experiments, and the silent echoes of agony captured within bottles, a macabre testament to obsession and human cruelty. The scientist continued his work with detached precision, moving among bottles and instruments, his mind focused solely on capturing the essence of terror. Each scream a data point, each victim a tragic contribution to the cursed archive. Rumors of the laboratory spread cautiously among Berlin's underground, whispered in dark alleys and abandoned buildings. No one dared approach directly, Yet tales of vanished individuals, tortured screams, and cursed bottles traveled through hushed conversations. Each story seemed more horrific than the last. A man allegedly captured for a minor offense, his scream recorded, stored, and analyzed. An assistant disappearing after questioning the ethics of experiments, leaving only his terrified gaze behind. The scientist, aware of the murmurs, moved with deliberate caution, increasing security while perfecting instruments designed to prolong and measure terror with unprecedented precision. Even minor events in the city were framed through the lens of fear. A distant scream, a shadow moving unnaturally, the fog pressing against windows, blending reality with speculation. Citizens felt an uneasy tension, a subtle awareness that some corners of Berlin harbored horrors beyond wartime chaos. Inside the laboratory, preparations for experiments were elaborate and meticulous. Instruments were calibrated, bottles cleaned and lined, and assistants rehearsed protocols with fearful compliance. Every object, every detail, reinforced the methodical extraction of terror, the obsessive documentation of screams, and the cruel symmetry of science applied to human suffering. Guards became extensions of the scientist's will, silent witnesses to macabre acts, conditioned to obedience under threat of inclusion in the experiments themselves. The city's fog provided cover, masking subtle movements, while the laboratory's interior remained alive with haunted energy. A cursed aura reflecting past agony and anticipating future victims. Victims were carefully chosen, often unsuspecting individuals who wandered too close or were lured under false pretenses. The anticipation before each experiment grew into a ritual, the scientist observing every reaction, assistants ensuring precision, shadows in corners flickering with haunted energy. Even the bottles seemed to hum faintly with captured screams, reflections of agony preserved in glass, their presence amplifying tension in the room. Whispers among guards and assistants conveyed fragments of past experiments, each story adding to the macabre narrative of precision, cruelty, and obsession. The scientist's mind operated like a dark metronome, each moment calculated to maximize fear, each scream a note in the symphony of terror. Outside, Berlin suffered war's chaos. Yet the hidden laboratory offered a parallel horror, a cruel theater where human screams were the instruments and obsession the conductor. Rumors suggested that some screams contained unexplainable effects, shadows moving with consciousness, lights flickering erratically, and haunted energy that seemed to linger beyond the immediate presence of victims. The anticipation in the air became almost tangible, thick with dread, haunted energy, and the knowledge that no one could predict who would be next. Every assistant knew their role was survival. Every guard felt the weight of complicity. The scientist remained detached, observing reactions and cataloging fear with meticulous, almost ritualistic precision. The laboratory itself seemed alive, a haunted vessel capturing not only sound but the very essence of terror, vibrating with the cumulative weight of human suffering. As preparations continued, the atmosphere thickened, shadows bending unnaturally, candlelight flickering over instruments and bottles, amplifying the sense of cursed inevitability. The scientist, consumed by obsession, seemed untouched by morality, focusing solely on method, documentation, and the macabre artistry of human horror. Outside, Berlin's fog pressed against the windows, blending the city's chaos with the laboratory's cursed stillness, isolating the experiments in both space and morality. The rumbling of distant bombs contrasted with the precise, controlled horror unfolding within, a grim reminder that human cruelty could surpass the destruction of war. Every detail, from the arrangement of bottles to the positioning of instruments, contributed to the haunted rhythm of anticipation, ensuring that the next experiment would proceed with chilling exactitude. Shadows shifted, instruments gleamed, and the laboratory vibrated faintly with the memory of screams past and the anticipation of screams yet to come, a cursed prelude to inevitable tragedy. Guards and assistants moved silently, eyes darting to bottles and shadows alike, aware that the haunted energy was both witness and participant in the macabre preparations. The scientist's obsession had become a force in itself, shaping the rhythm of the laboratory, dictating the actions of all present, and ensuring that fear was not only preserved, but amplified with each passing moment. The day of the next experiment arrived with a quiet dread, Berlin cloaked in fog, the city unaware of the horrors hidden behind closed doors. Inside the laboratory, every instrument was prepared, every bottle polished, every assistant rehearsed their roles with trembling precision. The scientist inspected each detail, eyes cold, expression unreadable, focused entirely on maximizing the effectiveness of fear. Victims, lured under false pretenses, entered the laboratory unaware of the macabre fate awaiting them. Their presence triggered subtle shifts in shadows, a haunted energy responding to the tension, anticipation, and terror that permeated the space. Candlelight flickered across instruments designed to measure every nuance of scream, every shiver, every sign of panic. The scientist's obsession reached its zenith, each movement deliberate, each observation meticulous, cataloging responses with cruel efficiency. Guards maintained silence, their obedience masking inner fear, while assistants executed their duties with anxious precision, knowing that failure could result in joining the very collection they helped maintain. The laboratory seemed alive, reacting to the presence of fresh fear, amplifying shadows, flickers, and haunted energy. Instruments hummed faintly, bottles reflected distorted images, and the air thickened with the residue of past agony, creating a suffocating environment for new victims. Rumors circulated outside about vanished individuals, and though Berlin was consumed by war, those whispers carried the weight of dread, adding layers to the macabre narrative. Inside, the scientist conducted preliminary observations, noting heartbeats, micro-expressions, and vocal inflections, transforming human terror into data with obsessive precision. Every scream, every involuntary movement, every faltering breath was meticulously recorded, stored, and later analyzed, ensuring that the collection of terror grew with horrifying consistency. Shadows bent unnaturally along walls, responding to the ambient haunted energy, creating a rhythm that synced with the terror unfolding in the room. The experiment began in a controlled sequence, victims restrained yet exposed, the scientist's gaze unwavering, instruments calibrated to exacting standards, assistants executed steps with silent compliance, their hands trembling, yet disciplined, a reflection of fear infused into every action. Bottles lined the shelves, reflected the flickering candlelight, capturing both literal and metaphorical echoes of anguish. The haunted essence of screams, adding a cursed dimension to the room. Each scream resonated differently, creating a macabre symphony, interpreted and analyzed by the scientist as though fear were a measurable element. The laboratory's atmosphere became almost tangible, thick with cursed energy, shadows, and the accumulated weight of countless vanished souls. Observers, if they had been present, would have sensed a palpable difference, an oppressive tension that elevated terror from physical to psychological, merging the macabre with the scientific. Even subtle noises, the creak of floorboards, the shuffle of feet, the hum of equipment, amplified the haunted environment, intensifying reactions and enriching data for the scientist's obsessive study. Outside, Berlin groaned under bombs and chaos, but inside, time moved differently, measured by screams, reactions, and the precise orchestration of horror. Every step was deliberate, every sound catalogued, every flicker of shadow interpreted, ensuring that the experiment achieved maximum effect. Guards and assistants internalized dread, their own fear feeding into the haunted energy, a feedback loop that made each scream more profound, each reaction more telling. The scientist, detached yet obsessed, observed with relentless focus, the room vibrating with a cursed rhythm of anticipation and suffering. As the first scream pierced the air, shadows twisted in recognition, bottles reflected grotesque images, and the haunted energy of past victims merged with the present, amplifying the tragedy. The cycle of preparation, anticipation, and execution defined the laboratory, a macabre ballet of human suffering captured, measured, and preserved with brutal precision. The haunted, cursed environment ensured that every victim's scream became part of the collection, extending the laboratory's legacy and embedding a tragic, macabre rhythm that would echo long after the experiment concluded. The experiment commenced with chilling precision. Victims, restrained yet conscious, trembled as the scientist adjusted instruments, measuring every subtle shift in posture, every quiver in the voice, each micro-expression signaling the onset of terror. Shadows stretched along walls, flickering under dim candlelight, as if alive with the accumulated energy of past screams. The laboratory vibrated with haunted intensity, every sound amplified, every sigh and gasp recorded with meticulous accuracy. The scientist's hands moved deftly, applying methods designed to maximize fear, each action calculated to prolong agony, to extract the purest essence of terror. Bottles lined in neat rows reflected grotesque images, glass surfaces capturing light and shadow in a macabre dance, each bottle a repository of previous victims' suffering. Assistants moved silently, following orders with anxious obedience, their faces pale, haunted by the knowledge that one misstep could add them to the collection. The victims' screams escalated, layered with panic, agony, and disbelief, resonating throughout the room, bouncing off walls, instruments, and bottles, creating a symphony of macabre precision. Guards maintained a tense vigilance, their silence masking terror, aware that the slightest interruption could unravel the carefully orchestrated experiment. The scientist observed each reaction, noting physiological changes, vocal pitch, and facial contortions, transforming human suffering into quantifiable data, a macabre archive of brutality. Shadows bent unnaturally around the victims, reflecting the haunted energy that permeated the room, amplifying terror and creating a surreal, cursed atmosphere. The laboratory seemed alive, responding to the intensity of screams, the trembling of bodies, the palpable dread filling the air. Candlelight flickered across instruments, glass and metal, casting grotesque reflections of horror that seemed to move independently. Each moment was measured, each reaction recorded, each scream bottled in both sound and essence, a haunting preservation of human agony. Outside, Berlin groaned under wartime chaos. Yet within this laboratory, a different horror unfolded, deliberate and brutal, designed to extract maximum fear. The scientist's obsession manifested in meticulous repetition, ensuring that no nuance of panic went undocumented, no flicker of terror unnoticed. Bottles hummed faintly, shadows danced unnaturally, and the haunted energy thickened, creating an oppressive atmosphere where every second stretched into eternity for the victims. The experiment's intensity escalated, victims gasping, pleading, yet unable to escape the meticulous design of torture. Each movement monitored, each response analyzed. Assistants flinched with every scream, yet maintained disciplined execution, aware that deviation meant inclusion in the next round. The laboratory's architecture amplified sound, bending echoes in precise ways, ensuring that every scream resonated fully, intensifying the haunted aura. The scientist adjusted instruments further, focusing on maximizing emotional and physiological reactions, observing the delicate interplay between fear, sound, and human expression. Shadows elongated, flickering over the walls and bottles, giving the illusion of spectral observers, adding to the cursed ambiance. The screams layered upon past victims' essence, merging into a haunting symphony that filled the room, echoing against instruments and bottles. Guards watched silently, haunted themselves, the oppressive tension a constant reminder of the laboratory's cursed purpose. Each scream was a data point, each reaction catalogued with brutal exactness, preserving the tragedy of the moment for posterity in a macabre archive. Candlelight reflected off polished surfaces, highlighting grotesque features and amplifying fear, shadows contorting with the haunted energy of both living and vanished victims. The scientist's cold precision contrasted sharply with the visceral terror around him, creating a chilling juxtaposition of methodical calculation and human suffering. Every instrument, every bottle, every movement was part of a carefully orchestrated process designed to bottle fear, capture screams, and preserve human agony in a form both scientific and tragically macabre. The laboratory vibrated with cumulative dread, haunted energy, and cursed intent, a testament to the scientist's brutal genius and obsessive cruelty. The screams reached a crescendo, a chaotic symphony of panic and despair that filled every corner of the laboratory. Bottles lined on shelves seemed to resonate with the trapped energy, as if past victims' agony merged with present terror, amplifying the haunted atmosphere. The scientist moved with clinical detachment, recording data, adjusting instruments, ensuring that each micro-expression and vocal inflection was captured with brutal precision. Assistants flinched with every piercing cry, yet obeyed, aware that failure could make them the next victims, their own screams destined for the collection. Shadows twisted unnaturally along walls, bending around instruments as the laboratory seemed to breathe with cursed energy, alive with residual human suffering. The intensity of the experiment escalated, victims' bodies shaking involuntarily, their terror meticulously documented, every gasp and shiver contributing to the scientist's macabre archive. Guards remained silent, their pallid faces betraying fleeting recognition of horror too profound to name, each aware of the delicate balance between observation and survival. The scientist's obsession manifested in obsessive repetition, ensuring that no nuance of fear went unrecorded, no flicker of terror unnoticed. Bottles captured more than sound. They seemed to hold essence, the haunted imprint of human agony distilled into tangible macabre vessels. Shadows flickered against glass and metal, reflecting grotesque distortions of the victim's expressions, merging with the cursed energy that permeated the room. The laboratory seemed suspended in time, moments stretching endlessly as each scream layered over the last, creating a haunting rhythm that the scientist measured, analyzed, and preserved. Instruments hummed softly, vibrating with residual energy, amplifying the cursed nature of the space, transforming screams into both data and supernatural presence. Assistants, though compliant, shivered with every pulse of terror, their own fear subtly adding to the haunted aura. The scientist's cold gaze swept over the laboratory, noting every reaction, every flinch, every scream, his detached brilliance orchestrating the macabre symphony with meticulous control. Outside, Berlin remained engulfed in war, yet the true horror unfolded quietly within this concealed chamber, isolated from the chaos, concentrated entirely on human fear. Every bottle on the shelves, instruments, and shadowed corner contributed to the cumulative energy, a haunted record of suffering meticulously collected and preserved. The scientist adjusted devices with exacting precision, observing the subtle interplay between sound, expression, and physiological response, translating agony into a macabre science. Shadows moved unnaturally in tandem with screams, reflecting the haunted presence of vanished victims, the cursed resonance of terror amplified by the laboratory's atmosphere. The crescendo of screams intensified, layered with desperation, disbelief, and raw horror, each cry recorded, measured, and immortalized in the macabre archive. Guards and assistants, though silent, felt the oppressive weight of the cursed energy, their compliance driven by fear, their hearts pounding with anticipation and dread. The scientist's obsession consumed him entirely, every movement deliberate, every observation critical, each victim a tragic contribution to the growing collection. Bottles vibrated subtly, shadows bent with unnatural life, and the laboratory itself seemed sentient, responding to the accumulation of fear and agony within its walls. Candlelight flickered across instruments and glass, casting grotesque reflections that mirrored the torment of victims, past and present. The haunted energy thickened, saturating the room, bending perception, and creating an environment where fear became both tangible and immortalized. The scientist cataloged every nuance, every tremor, every scream, preserving human suffering with methodical cruelty, transforming agony into tangible macabre data. The crescendo finally subsided, leaving echoes of horror lingering, shadows stretched unnaturally, and bottles humming faintly with the essence of terror. Haunted and cursed, a testament to obsessive brutality. The laboratory remained alive with residual screams, haunted energy, and cursed intent, a chilling reflection of the scientist's brutal genius and meticulous obsession. Each scream, each reflection, each shadow became part of the narrative, a tragic, macabre record of human suffering frozen in time. When the experiment concluded, a heavy silence filled the laboratory, broken only by the faint hum of instruments and the residual echoes of captured screams. Victims, if alive, were left trembling, their bodies and minds scarred by the precision of terror they had endured. Guards and assistants exhaled cautiously, relief mingled with fear, knowing they had survived another cycle, yet remained complicit in the scientist's macabre work. The laboratory itself seemed to absorb the aftermath, walls saturated with haunted energy, shadows lingering unnaturally, as if remembering every cry, every flinch, every moment of agony. Bottles containing the essence of screams stood like macabre monuments, each a record of pain, fear, and human fragility, their presence a constant reminder of the brutality executed within these walls. The scientist moved calmly among them, noting the success of measurements, the efficiency of instruments, the exact intensity of terror captured. There was no celebration, no emotion, only detached observation, methodical analysis, and the haunted satisfaction of a man who had succeeded in quantifying fear. Outside, Berlin continued its descent into chaos, bombs falling, citizens fleeing, unaware that another horror had been meticulously preserved in secrecy. Rumors persisted in hushed tones, vanished individuals, strange noises at night, the cursed reputation of a hidden laboratory where screams were bottled and preserved. Assistants, though physically intact, carried invisible scars, their haunted eyes reflecting the weight of compliance, the horror of participation, the fear of inevitable inclusion in the collection. Each corner of the laboratory echoed with residual energy, shadows shifting faintly, instruments vibrating subtly, bottles reflecting grotesque distortions, a spectral record of human suffering. Scholars years later pieced together fragments of documentation, describing methods so cruel, so precise, that they defied conventional understanding. A tragic testament to obsession, brutality, and cursed genius, the scientist reviewed notes meticulously, comparing reactions, cataloging every scream, ensuring that the haunted archive of agony remained complete, precise, and untainted. The laboratory, though momentarily quiet, radiated a palpable tension, a lingering cursed aura, an oppressive weight that reminded all present of the tragedy that had unfolded. Observers reported an almost sentient presence, an energy derived from accumulated suffering, a haunted memory embedded within walls, instruments, and bottles. Outside, Berlin's fog and rubble masked the true extent of horror, yet inside the aftermath remained vivid, tangible, and inescapable, a brutal record of human fragility. Guards and assistants, though spared immediate harm, sensed the moral decay around them, the cursed legacy of participating in systematic terror, and the invisible presence of screams echoing in their minds. The scientists' cold detachment contrasted sharply with the haunted energy, a chilling juxtaposition that emphasized both methodical brilliance and moral abyss. Shadows seemed heavier, reflections grotesque, and the very air thickened with the lingering imprint of human agony. Every instrument, every bottle, every flicker of light preserved the memory of suffering, the essence of screams, the cursed record of an experiment that blurred morality, science, and brutality. The laboratory became a monument to obsession, a haunted archive where human fear was distilled, measured, and immortalized, a testament to the tragic consequences of unbridled ambition. Survivors and witnesses, though few, carried stories and nightmares that transcended description, haunted by glimpses of instruments, bottles, and the brutal efficiency with which human screams were captured. The aftermath, though silent, vibrated with residual energy, a cursed reminder of the macabre, meticulous, and haunting nature of the scientists' work. Even empty bottles seemed alive with memory, shadows shifting as though acknowledging the trapped agony within. The laboratory's haunted presence remained, an invisible weight pressing on all who entered, a reminder that the brutal genius had not only executed terror, but preserved it in immortal, cursed form. Human suffering had become both data and haunting, a legacy that no passage of time could erase, a reminder that obsession could transform science into a tool for macabre cruelty. The hours following the experiment were thick with silence and haunted tension. Shadows lingered unnaturally, bottles lined the shelves like sentinels of past agony, and the faint hum of machinery echoed the cries that had been captured. Assistants moved cautiously, avoiding eye contact, their faces pale, haunted by the knowledge that survival depended on obedience. The scientist reviewed notes meticulously, his expression unreadable, analyzing every scream, every micro-expression, every physiological change with obsessive precision. The laboratory itself seemed alive, saturated with residual energy, a cursed atmosphere that pressed against the mind and body of anyone present. Guards whispered cautiously among themselves, aware that rumors outside were growing, tales of vanished individuals, bizarre noises, and the haunted reputation of a hidden chamber of terror. Victims, if spared physically, carried invisible scars, trembling with every memory of screams, shadows, and instruments designed to extract maximum fear. Bottles seemed to vibrate faintly, as if acknowledging the trapped essence of human agony within, amplifying the cursed energy that dominated the room. The scientist's obsession persisted, cataloging data with meticulous care, ensuring that every scream was preserved, every reaction analyzed, every nuance of terror captured for posterity. Instruments reflected grotesque images under dim light, shadows bent unnaturally along walls, and the haunted energy thickened, creating a palpable reminder of the brutality endured. Even moments of quiet were charged with tension, shadows stretching unnaturally, bottles humming softly, the laboratory itself bearing witness to the cumulative weight of human suffering. Outside, Berlin continued its descent into chaos, bombs falling, civilians fleeing, oblivious to the precise macabre horrors occurring within the hidden facility. Assistants feared that any misstep, any lapse in attention, could result in disappearance. Their screams added to the growing collection of human agony. The scientist remained detached, methodical, moving among bottles and instruments, his mind consumed with obsessive documentation and preservation of fear. The atmosphere was thick with haunted energy, a cursed aura that made every movement deliberate, every breath measured, every glance calculated. Shadows flickered across walls and bottles, reflecting grotesque distortions, merging past and present suffering into a tangible, macabre record. Records and notes were organized with precision, a chilling testament to meticulous cruelty and obsession, preserving agony as both data and haunting legacy. The haunted energy persisted, seeping into instruments, bottles, and even the consciousness of those present, ensuring that every scream, every flinch, every subtle reaction contributed to the laboratory's macabre symphony. Even empty spaces in the room seemed charged, recalling the vanished victims and echoing the cumulative dread of previous experiments. Guards and assistants navigated cautiously, shadows of past screams influencing their movements, an invisible weight pressing upon each action. The scientist's work was far from complete. Each analysis informed the next round. Each observation deepened his understanding, and each scream added to the cursed archive of human terror. Bottles, instruments, shadows, and the haunted atmosphere combined into a precise, macabre ecosystem, one where obsession and cruelty converged to immortalize suffering. The laboratory's legacy was already cemented, a cursed monument to the consequences of obsessive brilliance unchecked by morality, a place where human screams were both study and haunting presence. Every corner of the laboratory seemed alive, resonating with fear, agony, and cursed energy, a tragic, meticulous record of brutality. Observers who would later study the facility described the air as thick with haunted memory, shadows contorting unnaturally, and bottles reflecting the tragic essence of terror distilled with obsessive care. Time inside the laboratory felt suspended, each second stretched by residual energy, every flicker of light magnifying the haunted presence of vanished victims. The aftermath lingered, heavy, oppressive, and macabre, ensuring that both the living and the spectral remained bound to the memory of screams, suffering, and human fragility preserved with brutal precision. Whispers of the laboratory's cursed nature spread quietly through Berlin, though most dismissed them as exaggerated tales. Yet those few who had glimpsed the inside spoke of anomalies that defied explanation. Shadows moving independently, instruments vibrating with no apparent cause, and bottles that seemed to hum with residual screams. The scientists' obsession had gone beyond mere documentation. Some claimed the captured essence of terror had taken on a life of its own. Assistants reported fleeting visions, spectral images of vanished victims, their anguished faces reflected in glass and metal, shadows bending unnaturally in the presence of bottled screams. Rumors suggested that certain screams contained inexplicable energy, a cursed force that lingered long after the victims had departed, haunting both the laboratory and anyone nearby. Scholars later documented inconsistencies in records, patterns that could not be explained by conventional science, hinting at phenomena that blurred the lines between fear, energy, and the supernatural. Bottles, lined meticulously, seemed to emit a faint vibration, as if the trapped screams were conscious, aware, and responding to the living observers. The city outside remained oblivious, consumed by war. Yet inside, the laboratory harbored a mystery beyond human comprehension, a cursed echo of terror preserved in precise, macabre form. Some assistants vanished mysteriously, their disappearances never recorded, adding to the legend that the laboratory itself was haunted, perhaps sentient, responding to the screams and the scientists' obsessive manipulations. Shadows lengthened and twisted during experiments, defying natural light, while the instruments occasionally malfunctioned without reason, amplifying the haunted energy in ways no one could explain. Even the scientists noted anomalies, yet treated them as variables to be recorded, not understood, further embedding cursed unpredictability into his work. Locals whispered that the haunted energy extended beyond the laboratory walls, influencing the foggy streets, bending shadows, and generating unexplained fear in those passing nearby. Bottles that had once contained screams allegedly emitted faint echoes, whispers of terror that could unnerve even seasoned guards, an auditory residue of human agony preserved through unknown means. Historical records hinted at experiments whose outcomes seemed impossible, assistants observing phenomena that defied physics, instruments capturing frequencies not measurable by conventional devices, and screams that echoed long after the source had vanished. The haunted nature of the laboratory became legend, a macabre tale that merged history, science, and cursed mystery, impossible to separate from the brutal reality of what had occurred within. Shadows, bottles, and instruments collectively contributed to an atmosphere thick with inexplicable energy, one that seemed to interact with living beings, amplifying fear and unease. Rumors suggested that even decades later, the essence of captured screams lingered in the air, a cursed residue impervious to time, haunting anyone who dared enter the forgotten chambers. The scientist's meticulous records hinted at awareness of anomalies, yet his obsession with measurement and precision prevented him from acknowledging the supernatural, creating a chilling blend of logic and cursed phenomenon. Those who attempted to reconstruct experiments reported faint whispers, moving shadows and bottles vibrating without cause, reinforcing the legend of a laboratory haunted by both human agony and inexplicable energy. The cursed essence of screams blurred the line between science and the paranormal, raising questions that no historian, scholar, or witness could fully answer. Each bottle seemed to contain not only sound but memory, terror, and haunted energy, preserving the tragic, macabre essence of human suffering in a form that defied understanding. Outside observers noted subtle effects on the neighborhood, unexplained chills, fleeting shadows, and a pervasive sense of dread, hinting that the laboratory's cursed energy extended far beyond its walls. The mystery remained unsolved. Was it human obsession, the power of fear, or a genuine supernatural phenomenon? Shadows, instruments, bottles, and haunted energy intertwined, creating a legacy of terror both measured and unexplainable. The laboratory became a nexus of macabre science and cursed anomaly, a place where brutal genius collided with haunted forces beyond comprehension, ensuring that the essence of horror endured long after the victims vanished. The cursed nature of the laboratory deepened over time, leaving a trail of unexplained events and vanished individuals. Assistants and guards reported hearing whispers that had no source, shadows bending unnaturally, and bottles vibrating as though alive with residual screams. Scholars who later investigated fragments of records noted inconsistencies, instruments measuring impossible frequencies, reactions in victims that defied known biology, and recordings that captured anomalies beyond sound. Rumors suggested that the essence of fear preserved in bottles had developed a sentience of its own, responding subtly to observers, influencing shadows, and amplifying the haunted energy. Locals spoke of areas near the laboratory where fog thickened unnaturally. Unexplained cold spots appeared, and fleeting silhouettes seemed to mimic past victims, a macabre echo of terror frozen in space and time. The scientist, consumed by obsession, remained unaware or indifferent, focused entirely on documentation. Yet the anomalies persisted, suggesting that his methods had crossed into realms beyond human understanding. Bottles, meticulously arranged, were said to hold more than screams. They contained the memory, the cursed energy, and the haunted presence of human agony, creating an environment where science and the supernatural intertwined. Assistants who stayed too long reported visions of vanished colleagues, the trapped essence of screams manifesting in fleeting apparitions, a haunting reminder that human terror had left an indelible mark. Shadows seemed to move in sync with the bottled screams. Instruments emitted faint vibrations without power, and the very walls exuded an oppressive presence, reinforcing the notion that the laboratory had become a sentient repository of fear. Scholars piecing together the history of the facility discovered fragmented notes describing anomalies that could not be explained by contemporary science. Reactions to unseen stimuli, unrecorded fluctuations in instruments, and energy readings inconsistent with known physics. Rumors persisted of bottles that emitted faint sounds when approached, whispers of terror echoing faintly through empty rooms, suggesting that the captured essence of human screams had achieved a cursed, haunted resonance. The laboratory's haunted energy influenced even those who never entered. Passers-by felt chills, shadows seemed distorted, and a pervasive sense of dread lingered in nearby streets. Assistants who survived experiments often suffered from lingering psychological trauma, haunted by fleeting reflections, distorted shadows, and memories of screams that seemed alive long after the event. The scientist's meticulous work unintentionally amplified the cursed nature, the obsessive documentation of fear creating a feedback loop where terror persisted beyond the confines of the laboratory. Bottles glimmered unnaturally in candlelight, instruments hummed faintly, and shadows twisted along walls, a macabre testament to human obsession colliding with forces beyond comprehension. Stories emerged of objects subtly moving, shadows behaving unpredictably, and whispered sounds audible only in proximity to the preserved screams, reinforcing the haunted reputation of the facility. Even years later, investigators reported similar anomalies, bottles vibrating, shadows bending, and echoes of human terror lingering in abandoned chambers. suggesting that the cursed energy was not confined by time. The laboratory became a nexus of unresolved horror, a place where meticulous science and cursed phenomena converged, leaving a legacy of fear, obsession, and tragedy that defied explanation. Each bottle, instrument, and shadow carried a fragment of human agony, ensuring that the haunted energy endured, a macabre presence beyond the reach of mortality. The mystery remained unsolved, a chilling reminder that some experiments transcend the boundaries of morality, science, and understanding, leaving a haunted, cursed imprint on the world. Observers, past and present, sensed the lingering presence of screams, the haunted energy of vanished victims, and the enduring shadow of a scientist whose obsession had forever blurred the line between methodical cruelty and supernatural terror. The laboratory's legacy endured long after the scientist vanished, leaving shadows, bottles, and instruments as silent witnesses to unspeakable cruelty. Berlin recovered from the chaos of war, yet the haunted energy persisted, a macabre reminder that human obsession could transcend morality. Bottles containing the essence of screams remained, vibrating faintly, echoing past agony, and whispering haunted memories to anyone who dared enter. Assistants and guards, though spared immediate harm, carried scars etched deep into their minds, nightmares replaying the faces, sounds, and fear of victims long vanished. Scholars piecing together fragmented records described an environment where brutality, obsession, and cursed phenomena intersected, creating a tragic monument to human cruelty. Shadows seemed heavier, instruments alive with residual energy, and the haunted essence of screams lingered, defying both time and reason. Rumors persisted, tales of vanished souls, haunted bottles, and a laboratory where fear had been distilled into tangible, macabre form. Visitors reported feelings of dread, shadows bending unnaturally, and bottles emitting faint echoes, confirming that the laboratory's cursed presence had never truly faded. The scientist's obsession had become immortalized in the instruments, bottles, and haunted walls, a chilling testament to a mind consumed by cruelty. Even years later, investigators sensed a lingering presence, subtle vibrations in glass, faint whispers, and shadows that refused to obey natural laws, suggesting that human terror had left a permanent imprint. The laboratory stood as a tragic archive, a repository of fear, obsession, and brutal precision, a cursed space where human agony had been measured, preserved, and transformed into haunting energy. Every corner seemed alive with memory, every shadow a reflection of terror, every bottle a vessel of preserved screams. The macabre legacy endured, a grim reminder that human curiosity unchecked by morality can create haunted spaces beyond comprehension. Stories of the laboratory persisted, warning of obsession, cruelty, and the tragic consequences of reducing human suffering to data points. The cursed bottles, instruments, and shadows became symbolic, a haunting reflection of the scientist's brutal genius, meticulous cruelty, and enduring obsession with terror. Even the city, rebuilt and renewed, could not fully erase the memory embedded in the haunted laboratory, a tragic echo of vanished victims and preserved screams. Those who dared explore the hidden chambers sensed residual dread, shadows bending unnaturally, instruments vibrating faintly, and a palpable presence of human agony, confirming the cursed reputation. The laboratory remained a nexus of tragedy, haunted by human screams, the obsessive mind that preserved them, and the cursed energy that transformed suffering into immortalized horror. Bottles lined meticulously on shelves, instruments precisely arranged, and shadows alive with residual energy created a space where history, cruelty, and paranormal energy intertwined. Survivors and witnesses carried the stories forward, ensuring that the macabre legacy of the laboratory and its brutal scientist would never be forgotten. Every scream, every shadow, every bottle preserved human fear, immortalizing tragedy in a cursed haunted archive. The scientist's obsession had outlasted his physical presence, leaving behind a world where human agony, methodical cruelty, and supernatural energy converged into an enduring macabre memory. Decades passed, yet the haunted laboratory remained a silent testament to obsession, brutality, and cursed genius. Bottles still lined shelves containing preserved screams, vibrating faintly with the essence of human terror, a macabre archive of agony. Shadows stretched unnaturally across walls, instruments emitted subtle hums, and the air carried a weight that unsettled even the bravest visitors. Survivors and descendants of assistants spoke of nightmares, visions, and fleeting whispers echoing from the laboratory, haunted reminders of vanished victims and brutal experiments. Scholars piecing together history described phenomena that defied explanation: instruments capturing anomalies, shadows moving independently, and bottles resonating with residual energy that blurred the line between science and the supernatural. The city outside evolved, oblivious to the hidden horrors. Yet within the laboratory, the cursed energy persisted, a tragic, macabre presence immortalized through fear, obsession, and preserved human screams. Visitors reported sudden chills, distorted reflections, and echoes of terror that seemed to respond to their presence, as if the essence of past agony remained conscious, observing intruders. The laboratory's haunted legacy transcended time, each bottle, instrument, and shadow a repository of human suffering, meticulously captured by the scientist's obsession. Rumors of vanished individuals, spectral reflections, and cursed artifacts continued to circulate, a testament to the enduring power of fear and the macabre. Even the most rational observers acknowledged an oppressive, haunted atmosphere, as if the laboratory itself had absorbed human agony and refused to release it. The culmination of methodical cruelty, obsessive documentation, and unexplained phenomena transformed the laboratory into a monument of macabre history, a place where human terror was measured, preserved, and haunted eternally. Shadows, bottles, and instruments intertwined, creating an environment where every step, every whisper, and every glance reinforced the tragic essence of suffering. Survivors, historians, and investigators carried forward stories that ensured the brutal scientist's legacy persisted, a chilling reminder of obsession unchecked by morality. The cursed energy remained concentrated, as if the laboratory itself had become sentient, a haunted archive echoing with every scream, every terror-filled glance, every flinch meticulously recorded decades before. Time did little to diminish the intensity of the haunting. Bottles vibrated subtly, instruments hummed faintly, and shadows continued their unnatural dance across walls and surfaces. The macabre archive of screams stood as a testament to human fragility, cruelty, and obsession, a haunting record defying the passage of years, a cursed presence that refused to fade. Scholars noted inexplicable energy readings, instruments that registered anomalies, and the persistent haunted aura as undeniable proof that the laboratory's legacy remained alive. Shadows moved in tandem with remembered screams, bottles reflected distorted faces of vanished victims, and the air vibrated with a weight that defied explanation, ensuring that the horror of human suffering remained tangible. The scientist's obsession had outlasted his mortality, embedding a tragic, cursed imprint within instruments, walls, and bottles, a haunting testament to methodical brutality and human terror. The laboratory became more than a physical space. It evolved into a symbol of cursed legacy, macabre genius, and immortalized fear. Visitors left altered, haunted, and silent, unable to articulate the depth of terror preserved within. Bottles hummed, shadows shifted, and instruments responded to unseen stimuli, confirming that the haunted energy persisted beyond human comprehension. The tragic, macabre archive of screams endured, a cursed monument to obsession, cruelty, and the immortalized horror of a brutal scientist who measured, bottled, and preserved human terror for eternity.